Hi, I'm Casey, but most of you know me around the internet as Cartoon12 or ToonGal12 here on YouTube, and as my username suggests, I love cartoons. Even now that I'm an adult, I still prefer animated shows and movies over live-action ones. I just love the idea of using artwork to tell a story, and as of late I've had people ask me what some of my favorite TV shows and movies are and what inspired me to become an artist. I've also seen people make top 10 lists of their favorite shows and movies, and I find them interesting to listen to, especially if an episode or movie you weren't expecting to make the list pops up, and learning the reasons why he or she likes or hates a particular episode or movie. So then I thought, why not make a few top 10 lists of my own? I'd be interested to see if people agree or disagree with my choices, and if people could point out some things that I might not have considered before. So for this top 10 list, I thought I'd feature one of my favorite animated shows, Transformers. Originally created back in 1984, the Hasbro toy line about alien robots that disguised themselves as cars, planes, and other vehicles soon got its own cartoon show. It tells the story of two warring factions of robots from the planet Cybertron, the heroic Autobots and the evil Decepticons. Both factions left their dying planet in search of resources, crash-landed on Earth, and were then revived millions of years later in the present day. Or 1980s present day, that is. Considering this is a cartoon from the 80s, meant mostly to sell toys, some of the tech in this show is pretty dated now, and the plots were usually the typical Saturday morning cartoon fare. Decepticons have evil plot to steal energy or destroy the Autobots, and the bots almost always turn the tables and win. Is this the greatest animated show ever? No, not really. At least not compared to the other incarnations that came later. But to its credit, the show had great and memorable characters and a very unique backstory and concept that captivated an entire generation and would be watched even to this day. Hey, if the franchise has been around for over 25 years, the show must have been doing something right. And out of all its incarnations, this version, known as Generation 1, or G1, is one of my favorites, and we'll be counting down my top 10 favorite episodes. Keep in mind, this list is comprised of my personal favorite episodes, and it's all just a matter of opinion. And whether you agree or disagree with my choices, I'd love to hear your feedback. But before we get to the actual list, I'd like to start with the 5 runners-up, the episodes that almost made the list but just fell short. Number 5, Autobump. The Autobots, mainly Blaster and Trax, are investigating a dance club and discover that the Decepticons are using music to hypnotize humans into doing their bidding. And when Blaster and Trax find themselves in deep trouble, it's up to Trax's human friend Raoul to save the day. This wasn't the first time the Decepticons tried the enslave the humans to help us plot, and it's never really established just what they're exactly planning to accomplish by doing this. But still, hats off for giving Raoul another appearance in the show, as well as giving us a long-awaited fight between Soundwave and Blaster.
I've been waiting a long time for this. You poor excuse for a sound system on dark. No shock. I need some extra punch, and here's the punch I need.
Number 4, Make Tracks. Going a bit out of order here, this was the first episode to introduce Raoul, a street punk turned hero, when he helps Trax and the Autobots uncover a massive car theft ring, all a plot by the Decepticons to create a massive drone army to wipe out their enemies by sheer force of outnumbering them. This episode's a bit famous for having a lot of scale issues like Hoist riding inside Huffer even though Huffer is smaller, or Starscream being able to fly around inside a human mall, and why is it that cutting one wire can completely disable Trax? But to its credit, the Decepticons' plan was a bit more unique this time around, and seeing the Autobots helping the police fight crime is pretty cool. And out of all the main human characters, Raoul was one of my favorites, and it's a shame they didn't use him more often. He wasn't as squeaky clean as some of the other characters, and was the only one with any sort of real backstory. Oh, and remember kids, if Megatron ever attacks you, just use spray paint! Number 3, a prime problem. The Decepticons discover an unstable energy source that can kill on contact, so Megatron creates a clone of Optimus Prime to infiltrate the Autobots to trick them into entering this dangerous area and destroying themselves. Cue the "I'm the real Optimus, no I'm the real Optimus" routine. Now, the basic premise of this plot basically requires all the main characters to grab the idiot ball. Nobody thinks to take these two primes into separate rooms and drill them with questions only the real prime would know. Even after the bots notice Optimus acting weird, no one puts 2 and 2 together. Or why didn't Megatron just create an army of clones and overwhelm the Autobots? Well, even with these problems, I still can't help but like this one. In Megatron's defense, why spend time and energy creating a clone army when you can just make just one really good clone and trick your enemy into wiping all of themselves out in one go? And oddly enough, that's very nearly what happens. At one point, the Autobots do believe that the clone is the real deal and nearly walk right into their doom. Though then again, when you have the real Optimus making goofs like this...
Here's something that can't give you cares. He's drop split.
What?
He's drop split.
Say that again?
He's drop split.
Did he just call Spike Splick?
He's drop split.
Maybe we should cut the Autobots some slack. Number 2, the Golden Lagoon. Beachcomber discovers a secluded glen that contains a pond of gold liquid that can make any Transformer invincible if they take a dip in it. And although the Autobots emerge the victors in battle, that won't bring back the once beautiful, now destroyed lagoon. Why both sides continue to shoot at each other when laser fire doesn't work on their invincible bodies, I'll never understand. But to its credit, this was a rare case of giving us a pacifist character who draws attention to the fact that their victory isn't so great when it costs the destruction of a rare and beautiful habitat. The aftermath of battles is something you don't see too often, especially not on a show like this. Or if you're not too fond of all the tree hugging, enjoy this bit of chaos. And number 1, enter the Nightbird. A scientist creates a female ninja robot, and naturally the Decepticons steal her and reprogram her to destroy the Autobots. It's never really made clear what Nightbird's original purpose was supposed to be, and also, she's the first female ninja robot? What, they already have a lot of male ninja robots running around out there? But I can overlook that for the fact that we're given a really cool robot with a great design that's able to take out all the Autobots single-handedly. Even worse is the fact that since she's the only robot of her kind and has to be returned to the scientists, the bots can't damage her in any way. Here, it's Starscream of all people who shuts down Nightbird after getting jealous of her being replaced. Who knew you could defeat the Decepticons by getting Megatron a girlfriend? Also, Cliffjumper can't jump cliffs, and Nightbird stole her weapons from Star Wars.
Nightbird, we've come to help. Don't force us to fight you.
So now, with the runners-up out of the way, let's get to the actual list. Here it is, my top 10 favorite episodes of the original Transformers. Number 10. Desertion of the Dinobots, Parts 1 and 2. For those of you who don't know, I'm in that small percentage of fans who actually likes the human characters on Transformers. Yep, I ain't afraid to say it. Want to fight about it? Any episode that showcased their non-uselessness was a highlight, and this hands down showed Spike and Carly at their best. It all begins when the Autobots discover a Decepticon base and the typical fight scene happens. It gets so bad that even the Dinobots are called in to assist. But things take a turn for the worse when both sides start experiencing power failures and other problems like being halfway stuck in alternate modes or losing their head, literally. They discover they're suffering from cybertonium depletion after being away from Cybertron for so long. There's more on their home planet, but obviously they're in no condition to retrieve it. The only ones left standing are the Dinobots, since they were created on Earth, and Spike and Carly try to convince them to help the Autobots. It doesn't help that the Dinobots aren't on very good terms with the Autobots, and considering how they're usually only called out when they're needed, I can understand why they're so quick to abandon the bots 2 scenes later. I mean, what, they just stay in that cubbyhole at the Ark all the time till someone opens the door? Well, that kinda sucks. Anyway, it soon falls on Spike and Carly to take a space bridge ride to Cybertron to get the Cybertronium themselves, but let's just say that Cybertron needs a new door greeter.
That was my car! An Autobot! Decepticreep! I don't think he cares, Carly.
Pretty soon what follows is a tense game of cat and mouse as the 2 humans have to fight their way to Wheeljack's old laboratory, dodging Shockwave and any other dangers at every turn. Eventually they run into Swoop, who agrees to help them, during which the Dinobots are not only rescued from the Decepticons but also finally learn the details of the war between the bots and cons and help the humans get the Cybertonium back to the Autobots. This story's a great one, mostly because this is the first time that Spike and Carly were having to go to Cybertron and face down Decepticons completely on their own. And even with Swoop's eventual help, it leaves you wondering just how or if this odd trio will pull this rescue mission off. And what do these 2 get for all their trouble? A big shiny medal. But hey, if being an honorary Autobot means I get to go on adventures all the time and save the world, then sign me up.
Spike, Carly, we owe you our lives, and to show our appreciation, we'd like to make you honorary Autobots.
Thanks, Optimus. It's a real honor. And thanks, Spike. It was fun.
Number 9. The God Gambit. When someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes! Or at least that's the mindset that Astro Train has, leading to a very memorable episode. It all begins when Cosmos is being chased by the Decepticons, during which he gets hit and crash lands on Titan, one of Saturn's moons. He's soon discovered by the native people of the moon, and when Astro Train, Thrust, and Starscream show up soon after, they're mistaken for gods. Naturally, the cons decide to take advantage and go along with the charade in order to enslave the people.
Here's the church, here's the steeple. Open the doors, and where are the people?
Pretty soon, Omega Supreme, Perceptor, and Jazz show up to rescue Cosmos and quickly get more than they bargained for, as they must not only save their friend, but also defeat the Decepticons and team up with one of the residents of Titan to clear up the confusion and prove to the moon people that they're not gods. When dealing with a Saturday morning cartoon about giant transforming robots, you never expect to get an episode dealing with religion, people pretending to be deities, and the consequences of basically pranking an entire race into doing your bidding. Or you'd at least expect the writers to play it for laughs. And while there are a few funny lines, surprisingly this story takes the issue fairly seriously. And who says cartoons can't teach you anything?
This is terrible!
Cosmos has been in worse predicaments.
No, I mean worshiping him like he's some kind of god. We're not gods, we're just fancy machines, Stellaria. We have much to be thankful for. Like no Decepticons to monkey around with your beliefs.
Number 8. Cosmic Rust. Much like Desertion of the Dinobots, this was another Transformers deal with outbreak of weird disease plot. It all begins when the Decepticons are traveling through space when they discover a planet that was once colonized by the Autobots many years ago.
When there's a curse on the door, there's treasure on the other side.
Clearly Clearly, Starscream's never seen an Indiana Jones movie. Anyway, the Khans manage to find a weapon to use against the Autobots, but in the process become infected with cosmic rust, a corrosive disease that affects anything metal. Conveniently, Perceptor has just invented a new chemical he calls Corostop, which prevents rust. Can you see where this is heading? Naturally, the Khans kidnap Perceptor, forcing him to cure their leader, and pretty soon both bots and Khans alike are stricken by the disease, with Perceptor racing against time to mass-produce the cure and save everyone. Like I said earlier, this story is a bit similar to Desertion of the Dinobots, but it ultimately got higher billing because 1. It involves a scientist character, in this case Perceptor, pretty much single-handedly saving everyone's lives without shooting up the place. And 2, unlike the cybertonium shortage in the other episode, this disease could also affect earthbound objects too, making the stakes even higher. With an episode about saving Lady Liberty, you can't go wrong. Also, bonus advice, if your computer stops working, just kick it. Number 7. The Search for Alpha Trion.
How quaint! The girls have come to rescue their boyfriends!
Female Autobots. I thought they were extinct.
Apparently, Shockwave's never watched the Discovery Channel. Ah yes, the infamous first appearance of the Autobot Femmes. Not only are we introduced to a ton of new characters, but we also start to learn the personal history of some of our main heroes, most notably Optimus Prime. It all begins when a team of Femmes made up of Ielita 1, Chromia, Moonracer, and Firestar, the girlfriends of Optimus, Ironhide, Powerglide, and Inferno, respectively, are raiding Shockwave's headquarters. Although they manage to escape, their secret base is discovered and destroyed, and Ielita 1 is captured. Of course, Megatron uses her as a bargaining chip, to which Optimus is shocked his old flame is even still alive. From there on, our swingin' bachelors mount a rescue mission, leaving Ielita 1 critically injured and Optimus racing to find Alpha Trion, the only Autobot that can save her. This episode's pretty special, as it's one of the few times we ever see female Transformers, other than RC, who didn't show up until the movie. We also learn that different bots have different special powers. In Ielita's case, she can actually stop time, which also apparently brings back disco temporarily. Also, is it just me, or does it look like Prime stepped out of a soap opera in this scene? All in all, this is a really great adventure that starts to drop some big hints as to who Prime used to be in the past.
Only your design will properly interface with Ielita 1. But how would you know, Alpha Trion? Only my creator could know that.
And who is that creator, you ask? Well, join me at the next number. Number 6. War Dawn. Well, it wouldn't be a science fiction show without at least one time travel episode, now would it? And I put this and Search for Alpha Trion back to back because they actually lead into one another fairly neatly. It all begins when the aerial bots are in hot pursuit of the Decepticon Seekers and can't help but admire their flying skills. They're then called to Cybertron to investigate some strange energy readings and see their chance to try and talk to the Seekers, believing that their evilness is just a misunderstanding. This sounds ludicrous, I know, but keep in mind, at the time of this episode, the aerial bots were only just created, so they still had a lot to learn. And let's just say they learned their biggest lesson the hard way. It turns out the energy readings they detected were from a time machine that Megatron was tinkering with. After taking advantage of the aerial bots' naivete, the Khans tricked the team into entering the time machine with the intention of sending them back to the beginning of time. Although the other Autobots managed to stop the machine, they're too late in preventing the aerial bots from being sent back in time regardless. The team of planes soon find themselves millions of years in Cybertron's past, back when the planet was bright and alive and not at war. They then meet a simple dock worker named Orion Pax and his girlfriend Ariel. Gee, I wonder who these two could be. Anyway, Megatron and some of the Decepticons are also there, and at this point in time, flying Cybertronians are a new thing, and Orion and Ariel can't help but admire them. And when Megs asks them to show him around an energy warehouse, they gladly take him there. Well, I'm sure nothing could go wrong, right?
Leave him alone!
Ariel, no!
I had a witty retort here, but I think the Seekers said it best.
Are those guys crazy? Crazy? Or even dumber than I suspected!
Anyway, the Aerial Bots finally come to their senses and realize how evil the Decepticons really are before trying to find a doctor for Orion and Ariel. They run across Alpha Trion, who ultimately rebuilds them into, you guessed it,
You may not recognize him. He is no longer Orion Pax. Now he is the first of our new defenders, Optimus Prime.
I was wrong, my friends. I admired Megatron merely because he was powerful. I failed to see how he used that power.
It's okay. We've all made the same mistake.
Now we've got to try to help Ariel.
Yes. Can you reconstruct her as you did me?
Perhaps I can try a similar reconstruction using your schematics. I'll send some droids out for her.
Then let's go stop Megatron.
A female warrior. I'll call her Elita 1.
In the end, the Aerial Bots make it back to the present, having learned a valuable lesson, while we, the audience, learned how the most iconic Autobot came to be. This story is another unique one in that we get to see Cybertron in its glory days, and it's heartbreaking watching these sweet, innocent characters knowing they have no idea of the tragedy about to come. But at least it gave us our most noble hero.
You've caused enough destruction for one day, Megatron. I haven't even started. You? Who are you? Your worst nightmare.
Number 5. The Immobilizer. Ah, the old new invention is stolen and used for evil routine. However, this story's got a slight twist as it serves as the introduction for a new major character. Basically, Wheeljack's invented a new laser gun that can immobilize anything, and naturally when the Decepticons get wind of this, they want it. At the same time, Ironhide's going through a bit of an emotional crisis as he seems to keep screwing things up at every turn. First, he accidentally damages the new invention, then he's distracted while guarding the invention test site, allowing the Autobots to be ambushed. The distraction turns out to be Carly, a huge fan of the Autobots who got too close to the action. I truly think Carly stands as one of the better human characters, as she was both kind and tough and wasn't always a damsel in distress. And in the time she was captured or in trouble, she at least tried to engineer her own escape. And while she does make big mistakes in this episode, like trying to single-handedly blow up the Khan's headquarters, man, this is a girl after Ironhide's own heart. She makes up for it by helping to defeat the Decepticons, fix the Immobilizer, and restore Ironhide's faith in his skills. Oh, and she's also studying at MIT and has her own car. Let's just say Spike was very wise to ask her on a date. In short, this story manages to juggle 3 different plot lines all at once and still leaves room for humor like this.
You're losing your warriors, Megatron. Warriors are expendable. The most important thing is that I get what I deserve. And I always do. You deserve that, all right, Megajerk. Rest in peace.
Number 4. The Ultimate Doom Parts 1, 2, and 3. Epic. That's the only word I have for describing this episode. Epic. This was one of the few multi-part stories that stretched beyond just 2 parts, and part of the plot even inspired the plot for the live-action Dark of the Moon movie. It all begins with the Autobots battling the Decepticons, but the fight is really just a distraction to kidnap Spike's dad, Sparkplug. He's then fitted with a mind control device, after which he sabotages Autobot headquarters, then helps the Decepticons in building a massive space bridge that'll pull Cybertron into Earth's orbit. Doing this, the Khans plan to siphon off all the energy released from the Earth being destroyed. From there on, it becomes a race against time to stop all the natural disasters caused by another planet in our orbit, save Sparkplug, as well as all the other mind-controlled humans without hurting them, stopping the Decepticons, and finding a way to put both Earth and Cybertron back in their proper orbits without destroying either planet. This episode really pulls out all the stops, from having a major character betray the heroes, even if he is under mind control, to having nearly all the characters showcased at some point or another, showing off all their individual special gadgets and powers, including a few we've never seen before. Other episodes can get kind of mixed to just okay when it comes to the animation and writing, but you can tell everyone involved must have been particularly proud of this one because the quality really shows. And it also includes some of the most touching moments of the series, as Optimus must give fatherly advice to Spike in Sparkplug's absence.
What's that, Spike?
Oh, hi. Just a wrench. It was my dad's. Why are humans working for Megatron? They're supposed to be on our side.
It's puzzling. And we can't deal with human beings as we do with Decepticons.
All in all, this is a feature-length adventure with plenty of twists and turns that'll keep you in suspense all the way to the end.
Thanks, guys, for not giving up on me. Especially you, Spike.
Dad, it's like you taught me. You never quit on the people you love.
Mushy, but true.
Number 3. Roll for it. This episode remains one of my favorites because it serves as the introduction to my favorite human character from G1, that being the super genius Chip Chase. Basically, a scientist has created an antimatter formula and the Decepticons want it, and it soon becomes a digital game of hot potato as the formula is passed from one person to the next in order to keep it out of the wrong hands. And oddly enough, rather than try and recap this, I think it's easier to just show you all the best parts, and you'll see why I like this story so much.
Steeping the antimatter formula is gonna be a piece of oil cake.
What?
Steeping the antimatter formula is gonna be a piece of oil cake.
What the frick is oil cake?
This diskette will let your home computer talk with old Itsy Brainiac here anytime, day or night.
Behold, the most powerful storage media ever created by mankind.
My battle computer is down! I'm helpless! I must link up with another online computer!
Wow, accessing one computer from another? Is he from the future?
Prowl, this is Chip Chase. Don't worry. I'm assuming control now.
You sure had me execute a fantastic move, Chip.
You think just like a regular mainframe.
Thanks, Prowl. I'm doing my best.
Please keep it up. We make a terrific team.
Apparently, computers with only a flash drive of memory can control an alien space robot.
Oh no, Decepticons. I've memorized the formula, so once I rip this up, there's no way the Decepticons can learn to make the antimatter.
Holy crap, is Bruce Banner your cousin or something?
You're too late, Ravage. The information's already been destroyed.
Excellent, Ravage. Arrogant flesh creature, did you think you could hide the antimatter formula inside your primitive brain? Formula extracted, Megatron.
So for one episode, Soundwave could read minds. But then he lost the power when he remembered his name is Soundwave, not Brainwave. Oh, and last but not least...
Guys, we gotta get those antimatter cubes before it's too late!
It is too late.
Okay, Okay, as random as some of that was, it's a shame that Chip Chase was pretty much forgotten about post-movie because he's arguably the most useful guy to have around. He's kind, he's smart, and most notably, he's one of the rare disabled main characters who proved that he could go toe-to-toe with the Decepticons even while being confined to a wheelchair. And best of all, no one brings attention to this fact, and no one ever mentions his disability or treats it like a big deal. And to the Autobots, it really isn't a big deal. Except, of course, when he saves everyone.
Congratulations, Chip. You saved the day. You're a hero.
I am? I did? Really?
You sure did. You may not be an Autobot, but when you rolled for broke back there, you sure could have fooled me.
We're proud to have you as our friend.
Number 2. Fire in the Sky.
Wow, that's the biggest snowman I ever saw.
Not snowman, Spike. Snowbot. There's a flurry in a hurry.
Oh, thanks, Jazz. I get the drift.
Aw, how about that? An episode in the wintertime. Except it technically isn't wintertime. It's July. In the middle of the desert. What could be behind this weirdness? Take a wild guess. Okay, in all seriousness, the Autobots take off for a mission to the Arctic Circle and they discover the Decepticons are draining the energy out of the Earth's core, which is causing the drop in temperature around the world. This sounds pretty cut and dry on the surface. That is, until you dig a little deeper, literally. The plot gets really interesting when the cons discover a huge robot frozen in the ice, and it turns out to be an old friend of Starscream's named Skyfire. Millions of years ago, before the war between the bots and cons, the two were both scientists and explorers and were charting Earth, an unknown planet to them at the time, when a storm separated the two and caused Skyfire to crash land and he'd be lost to time. It's not too often that we find out the personal histories of some of the villains. And although Skyfire is grateful for being thought out, he's doubtful about becoming a warrior rather than a scientist. But he joins the cons out of loyalty to Starscream. And what follows is an intriguing bit of introspection rarely seen in a cartoon from this time, as Skyfire soon discovers who the real villains are and must decide which side he's truly loyal to. He quickly became one of my favorite characters, as both his kindness and curiosity at all things new always directed his actions. And it is that curiosity and kindness that ultimately saves the day. Plus, it's the only episode that I can think of that takes place in a winter setting, and both Optimus and Megatron get in a really cool crystal sword fight. Between the different setting, new character introduction, and background info on some of our characters, it all adds up to a rather unique episode.
I take no orders from you. I am an Autobot now.
And my number 1 favorite episode of the original Transformers is Attack of the Autobots. Okay, now I know you're all probably thinking, what? This is your favorite episode? Really? And while I can accept that this story's got its flaws, I still can't help but love it. Why? Well, let's take a look and find out. It all begins when the Decepticons launch an attack on Autobot headquarters, when really it's just a distraction so Megatron and Starscream can sneak in and install personality destabilizers into the recharging stations. Why they never utilize this invisibility spray again is anyone's guess. Anyway, the Autobots recharge the next day and are converted into being evil! But luckily, only Bumblebee and Jazz didn't recharge in the stations, and soon it's up to them, along with Spike and Sparkplug, to stop the Decepticons and save all their comrades from their path of destruction. Now, this may sound odd, but I fully admit that other episodes on this list were a bit better in terms of plot, but the reason this story jumps all the way to the number 1 spot is for a few simple reasons. One, even though the way in which the bots are turned evil is kinda weird, it's still nevertheless a scary proposition to see all our favorite heroes under the mind control of the Decepticons and destroying human air bases and buildings. Especially when the humans don't see it coming, because all they see is an Autobot and just immediately assume they're good. Plus, Autobots with red eyes is just creepy. And more importantly too, Jazz is by all accounts my favorite Autobot, so to see him, Bumblebee, who's usually joked at being tiny, sweet, and nice, and two humans having to single-handedly save all the Autobots is nothing short of awesome. Plus, we get great moments like this.
You distract him, and I'll give it a try. First, drain evil. Second, recharge good. Let's hope we don't finish up with third Mary Jazz. Yo, Blue Streak, hold here, man.
Miss, Prime's a lost cause.
I'll stop him.
Bumblebee, come back.
Prime, I know you're not evil. I believe in you. You've got to fight it. Don't give in.
Help me, Bumblebee! Quickly! You did it, little friend. You saved me.
So, is this the greatest episode ever? Not really, technically, but Autobots going on a rampage and my favorite characters having to be the heroes more than makes up for it, which makes Attack of the Autobots my pick for my favorite episode. I'm Cartoon12 and I hope you enjoyed the countdown. I'll have more top 10 lists soon, so tune in again next time.